Us right now to weigh in is former Speaker of the House, Fox News contributor Newt Gingrich. Speaker, great to see you.
It's great to be back
Thank you
with
so
you.
much for joining us. So first off, how did he do, and how important was this for him in terms of going forward, getting his agenda done?
Well, I thought he did very, very well. I thought the total speech was comparable to one of Reagan's better speeches, and actually the most effective use of people who were guests to teach lessons. I mean, not just these are interesting people, but here's what each person means about what it means to be an American. I thought that was integrated better than I've ever seen it by anybody, including Reagan. It's a very strong speech. It worked very well, apparently, with independence, which was a key to where he's going. I think the next test, frankly, is President Trump. If he will stay focused, he did great in Davos. He did great last night. If he will stay focused on his messages and remain the president and not go back to being the candidate, he could, by summer, have an enormous impact on changing the country. Because the country, most of the country, except for the hard left, would like to see America successful. They would like to be for the President of the United States, whoever it is. It's a natural instinct. And to the degree that he doesn't let the elite media, and I noticed this morning they're already trying to, throw chum in the water and try to get him excited. He just needs to be calm, and I'll give you one example. If he releases the House memo, which he should, he ought to just have Sarah release it. He shouldn't say anything about it. He doesn't need to tweet about it. The act of the memo is its own, its own activity. He needs to go back and talk about jobs, America being back, American values, and a great reform program. We're actually trying to pull together today how many different reforms are in that speech, because it is an amazing list of things he recommends trying to get done.
Yeah, can I make a point on this?
Go ahead.
I think the speaker's absolutely right. You know, I was witness to this, but there's usually about a 72-hour run on good news before some bombshell comes out. You know, when he was 8 years old, he dropped his tray in the lunch line, and now there's an investigation. Whatever it is. But if I were him, not only would I have Sarah release it, but I would have her do it in a week. I mean, there's no rush. Sit around, absorb this, because what the mainstream media and the left wants to do is not talk about last night. They don't want to talk about the policies. They don't want to talk about the future. They want to find something else to talk about. If we can stay focused on the policies that he talked about last night, on the year of accomplishment and the vision for the future, it all starts to come together, because people are seeing more money in their paycheck. They're seeing the economy do well. Those 401ks, everything's going in the right direction. Stop giving people something else to focus on and focus on the good.
It really is.
So we're looking at polling. CNN has it at 70% of viewers last night supported the speech, 75% in the CBS News poll. These are really robust numbers.
But remember, some of you have seen a lot of these speeches. The people who watch the speech are people who are open to the speech. And so it's not the whole country. So you have a natural bias. Now, it was a great speech. It was well delivered. He is winning the argument. I agree entirely with Sean, who said it better than I could. If to the degree the White House can stay on these larger themes, they're going to win. To the degree they get sucked back into junk, they're going to lose.
Yeah. And within those numbers, you saw independents really siding with Trump and the Republicans. My question to you is, you've been at a few of these rodeos. Have you ever seen the opposition party behave the way the Democrats did last night?
You've seen individual members of our party take on Obama, et cetera. But no, I would say the depth of hostility, which you saw both in Joe Kennedy's speech, but which you saw, I mean, when the Black Caucus sits there and is told we have the lowest black unemployment rate in history, and they can't applaud.
It's crazy.
You have to think, we have the Ways and Means Committee staff put out every congressional district's tax cuts. For example, if you're a family of four with a median income in Joe Kennedy's district, you had a $5,800 tax cut. Now, Joe Kennedy, of course, voted against you getting the tax cut. But I think we should put together in every one of the Black Caucus districts, how big is the tax cut? I mean, if you can't applaud people back home having more money, you can't applaud people back home getting a job, there's a real disconnect between the political elites, including in the Black and Hispanic caucus, and the people of the United States. And the Republicans have to drive at convincing average African Americans and average Hispanic Americans that, in fact, what Trump is doing is remarkably good for them, despite their political leadership.
Yeah.
The Americans who say they're satisfied with the economy has gone up to 69% from 56% last spring. This is according to the Wall Street Journal. But President Trump hasn't felt any of that growing optimism on the economy. His approval rating's been stuck at about 38, 39%. And normally he is 20 points below the average for all modern presidents 1 year into office. Do you think that his own approval ratings, which it does matter to him, it has to kind of stick him a little bit, bother him? Will that catch up, do you think?
Oh, I think it eventually will. But remember, the entire elite media is dedicated to making sure that Trump didn't do it.
That's right.
I mean,
well,
whatever
that's why
it
the
is.
Democrats
They
sit,
tried so
they're not
hard
gonna,
this morning on
they're
CNN.
not going to give him credit. And some of the
Right.
things I saw on Twitter from liberal members of the media that were said last night during that speech was shocking and disgusting in terms of how they tried to frame the speech as literally being racist.
Yeah.
Look,
And I don't know how you get that.
I've been doing this stuff for a very long time, including the Reagan years, et cetera. Republicans have to get over worrying about the news media and understand they're a fact. They're our enemies. They hate us. They don't want us to be in power. And then you got to design a campaign that beats them.
But the president needs to get over that above and beyond all, because he seems to care too much what the New York Times says about
that's
it.
why
To be fair, it's hard. Constant bashing, constant trashing of the president, of the
It's
mainstream
not
media.
that hard.
I don't
Don't read the New York Times.
It's lies. It's not true. You're not hearing on the mainstream media about the jobs numbers. You're not hearing
Right.
what
But that's a
what the
fact.
progress is as a result of the regulation.
But Maria,
rollback.
that's a fact. It's not a problem. What you do about it's the problem. And the President of the United States, first of all, gets up in the morning. He's in the White House. They're not. He has Marine One. They don't.
Yeah.
He has Air Force One. They don't. He has Mar-a-Lago, which has got to be one of the better vacation spots in the world for presidents. And then he's got Camp David. They don't. So David Gergen told me many years ago, the biggest lesson he learned serving 4 presidents is their deadline's not the president's deadline, which is your point about releasing the paper later.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, the president ought to get up in the morning and go, I'm winning, you're losing, this is fun. Let's have another day where I win and you lose.
Right, that's true.
And every day he stays on message, he's winning and they're losing.
Hallelujah.
Yeah. Can he do it? Can he stay on message?
Do I sound like I've been trained by Spicer?
Well, let's.
No, I think it's reversed.
I was going to
think
say,
he
I
learned
grew
from
up
you.
at the altar of Speaker Gingrich.
All right, Newt, great to see you.
Good to
Thank
be
you
here.
so much, Newt Gingrich. There.